Okay, we are going to get started. We're going to get started. It's 6:30. Thank you for being here. Okay. Welcome to the December 9th meeting for the Worthington Board of Education. TJ, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Best.
Present.
Mrs. Davis.
Present.
Mrs. Epling-Skinner.
Present.
Ms. Harless.
Present.
Mrs. Hudson is absent.
Thank you. Welcome. My name is Kelly Davis. I am a board member here in Worthington Schools. To my left, you have board member Amber Epling-Skinner. Our treasurer, Mr. TJ Cusick. To my right is Dr. Trent Bowers, our superintendent. Then you have board member Stephanie Harless and board member Jennifer Best. So if you're able, please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We're testing out a new little microphone here, so there'll be a little bit of adjustment. So thank you for your patience. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Is there any questions or changes? Okay. TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling-Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
So tonight we get to be joined by the Worthington Education Foundation. They are going to make a presentation for their teacher grants staff grants, I should say, for staff members here in Worthington Schools. So I'm going to invite up Lindsay Roop and Sarah Mullen.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is this on? Yes. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Mullen. This is Lindsay Roop. We want to thank the Board of Education and Administration for having us tonight. The Worthington Education Foundation was founded in 1988, and after a brief dormancy post-pandemic, the WEF is proud to be back with an enthusiastic board, a new vibrant logo and branding, and a professional strategic plan. We are a volunteer-led, community-wide 501c3 organization. Our mission is to support future-forward learning within our school district by strategically funding innovative programs, backing non-traditional learning approaches that benefit our students, and forging ongoing community support for our schools. If you are interested in learning more, please visit our new beautiful website, thewef.org. We kicked off this school year with a grant cycle, and we were pleased to receive 21 applications from 11 different Worthington schools. After committee review and board vote, we are thrilled to award 8 grants tonight, totaling almost $25,000. We are proud that our winners are spread evenly across the district and encompass a wide variety of topics. If you want to come up when we call you, that'd be great. We are excited to feature these winners at our upcoming gala, Friday, January 31st. Our first winner is Nick Wiedenhoff and Mark Gallagher with Worthington Middle School. Their program was a strength training program, and they were awarded $10,000. This grant will be used to create a strength training room at Worthington Middle School. It will purchase 4 squat and bench racks with weights, 2 sets of dumbbells and mats. The room will be used during Wellness for Life classes, during community time and other athletic times, many of which are also shared with Kilbourne Middle, with proper supervision. Weight training is proven to increase dopamine levels and can help relieve depression, decrease anxiety, improve students' mood, and help them feel motivated. It meets Ohio PE Standard 3, which states students will demonstrate the knowledge and skills to achieve and maintain a health enhancing level of physical activity and fitness. They received our highest award this time. Congratulations. Our second winner is the Possibility Patch. The applicant was Catherine Wells from Sutter Park Preschool, and she received $5,000. Similar to the popular Granby Garden, the Possibility Patch will provide hands-on learning through planting, growing, and harvesting. It will also provide STEM opportunities to the littlest learners through measurements and science experiments and artistic opportunities of collaboration with plant materials. It is all about learning through exploration and learning to work together. Congratulations. Our next recipient is Kelly Swearingen with Thomas Worthington High School for her program Therapy Dog Training. She received $2,781. Kelly is seeking to use the funds to train a therapy dog to be introduced at Thomas Worthington High School in the 2025-26 school year. The therapy dog would be used for emotional support, anxiety, stress relief, support for students with special needs, counseling and mental health services, improvement of social skills, and crisis intervention. Kelly Swearingen would purchase a mini Bernedoodle in the spring of 2025 and would start training over the summer with the ability of the dog to be introduced in the fall of 2025. Kelly shared that Kilbourne High School currently has a therapy dog, and it has been a successful program. Congratulations. Our next recipient is Colleen Kokensparger with Slate Hill Elementary, and her program is Learning Through Play. You won't be bored with these games. And she is the recipient of $2,500. This applicant is using this grant to create a board game collection for their school library. The intention is to let students borrow board games to take home to play with their families, neighbors, and to foster intentional learning through play, as well as foster intentional family time. These games will be cataloged through the library, which was piloted by 2 other district schools, and the librarian seeks to provide multilingual instruction manuals for as many games as possible. Congratulations. Our next recipient is Rob Smith with Worthington Hills Elementary for the Hawkeye Bike Center. He is receiving $1,750. I love it. This grant would provide the funding to launch an outdoor bike mechanic area for all of the Worthington Hills students. The goal is to have a commercial outdoor bike stand and tool center, as well as an outdoor commercial pump. Students will have the opportunity to use the center before school, after school, and in school integrated into Wellness for Life standards, 4-5 science standards, EPP projects, and in a midday recess service opportunity, and to become their own mechanics. The school is averaging a 35-plus-a-day bike community with close to 100 bikers on the Wednesday bike bus days. Congratulations. Next, we have Morgan Malillo with Perry Middle School, connecting the Perry community, and she's receiving $1,000. This grant will be used to purchase a set of diverse and current model texts for Perry Middle School students to promote high-level reading for them. The Perry 6th grade Perry ELA students will partner with K through 3 elementary students in their feeder pattern and to share positive reading experiences centered around creating picture books. Congratulations. Next, we have Rick Armstrong with Granby Elementary for second and third grade balance bike for $1,070. This grant is to assist with the purchase of balance bikes used during Granby's PE classes as students are practicing and learning to pedal. It is clear that the Granby Bike Program is a gem in our community, and we are excited to be able to fund 10 more bikes, allowing for full classes to bike at the same time. Last but not least, we have Sean Strader from Thomas Worthington High School. His project is the French Reading Library and awarded $750. This grant will be used to start a library of French language books of varied levels and topics in the French classroom at Thomas Worthington. These books will include fiction, nonfiction, comics, graphic novels, and will promote free learning choices in the French language. Congratulations. I'm not the photographer.
All right, everyone, looking right here. Ready? 1, 2. Awesome. Well done.
Great job.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're excited.
Thank you so much to the Worthington Education Foundation for joining us and allowing us to be part of that moment. There are some amazing things happening in our schools, and I love that our educators are diving into our kids and just bringing out their creativity and our students' creativity. So thank you for that. All right, next on our agenda is visitor comments. So I'm going to read a little bit to you. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So the school board and administrative staff encourage and appreciate community interest in meetings of the Board of Education. This section of the agenda is designed to hear the views of community members about their schools and items on the agenda. Each speaker will be asked to address the board at the visitor's podium so that the speaker's remarks may be clearly heard. The speaker should give their name and street address and limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. If more than 6 speakers are present, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Consistent with our policy 9130 on public complaints, we ask that complaints about a particular employee be referred to the superintendent and not addressed during public session. We remind all speakers that our district values and respects all people as they are, and that our district is committed to creating and maintaining safe spaces for all of our students and community members. We want to remind you that we value public input and always appreciate when our community members remember our district's values, refraining from using harmful or offensive language, and sharing your comments in a civil and respectful manner. It is not our usual practice to respond to remarks during the visitor comment section. And with that, Comment section of our meeting. And now we are going to move on to information and proposals. Testing. All right, first, we will go through the second readings of the Neola policy updates and the rescission of policy 5223. Would anyone like to start?
I will just start and say, we did the first reading of policy. We made several changes based on board comments. The first was in policy 100, and we changed that we gave grandparents more rights. So Stephanie brought up a question of which of those boxes we wanted to check. We moved that to give, if grandparents or guardian at that time, the most possible rights. So that changed from the last time the board saw this. And then on 5136.01, we just added guardian to some of the verbiage where we had missed it. And then the same thing on policy 6460, we added guardian also in some of the areas where we had missed it. And then, so that would be, so that would be the only changes that you see from the first reading to the second reading when it comes to the bulk of these second reading policies.
And just to clarify, the ones that we did for the Neola for the first read didn't get any other public comment or outside comments or emails, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Anyone else? I see Stephanie and Jennifer both have your mics on, so.
Oh, no, I was just covering my bases. No, I'm good.
Okay. Jennifer?
Are we concentrating on just the whole packet or on both at this point? Do you want to get comments? That's a good question. On the big packet of Neola and then the 5223?
Yes.
So that my
the
only
packet
question
first.
on the whole packet was, did we get any community comments or feedback? So
Okay.
I'm good with all those.
Okay. Amber, do you have any questions about the packet, the Neola packet?
I just out of curiosity, and maybe we touched on this last week and I just don't remember, but Neola sends these packets out to school districts across the state, correct? Across the country? Like, I guess, what's the
Whoever
process
uses
then?
their services, so not every district uses Neola, but.
Yeah, we contract with Neola to help us with policy. And so most school districts contract with either Neola or the Ohio School Boards Association to help with their policy. So as laws change, they send us updates where they say, these are the laws. So most of what you see here was legislation that happened in the summertime. And then they go through the policy writing process that goes to our board policy committee to review all of those pieces. And as you saw in that packet, there were a number of things we're adopting, or this is a second reading we're asking you to adopt. There are some other things that we tabled. So we tabled some artificial intelligence policy that we'll want to bring back. We've tabled cell phone policy that we've said we will bring back. So you'll see some of these things come back. And then as the legislators are going through this lame duck session, inevitably legislation is going to come out of that. Neola is going to then figure that legislation out sometime this spring, come to us with another update and say, based on this legislation that's just passed, these policies that you have now need to be updated.
Okay.
So that's what you see.
Yeah, thanks. That's just a helpful refresher to me, and I don't know how many, in the audience here know that, so thanks. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments about the Neola update? Right. Any comments about the rescission of policy 5223?
I can go ahead and start, because I do have some comments. I've tried since the last few meetings to kind of sit back and reflect and think about this, because we have gotten a lot of community input. And my first thought is, I think we're moving a little quickly on this, and I wish we would have waited for the second reading until January, because the legislators are very busy right now, and from things I've heard and read and seen, I do think they're going to change the word to shall rather than may, and then we'll have to kind of start from scratch again. We are listening to the community. I do understand some families want and benefit from the program, and I don't have issues, but they did not leave school for the day to have that. I just do not think kids should be leaving school really for most reasons. And our elementary schools get out at 2:30. That's not really too far after lunchtime. So I'm not sure, I just can't understand why this program that is valuable to many families can't be after school. And I kind of want to check on our rental policy. I believe outside groups like this could even meet at our schools, not during school hours, correct, Dr. Bowers?
Yeah, there's no prohibition against religious groups, so it would just be a matter of space.
Okay, so we could offer to chat with them about the possibility of meeting in our schools with our students after school. If there's the parents that would like to do that. And my other concern is not that one program with 18 kids at one school is all that disruptive, but if we get to the point where there's 2 or 3 or 4 programs, and then all of a sudden the music world wants kids to take music lessons during school time, and then language lessons during school time, I just see it growing and getting out of hand. But my concerns are the legislators changing the wording. And also, if we would rescind the policy this evening, it goes into effect tomorrow. Kids that are planning on going to these programs over the next 2 weeks, it would be canceled. And I find that a little troubling because they're probably looking forward to it. It's Christmas season and things to look forward to. And I just don't really like our timing. So in my opinion, we have 2 options. We can postpone our vote on this and vote on it in January, or we can do an amendment and say that the rescission would take place after December 20th to get us through the next couple of weeks and not stop the program quite so abruptly. So I'd be curious if anyone else would be interested in either of those options. And when we get to the vote on it, I can make those motions. So I guess if you guys all have comments, you can just.
Sure, I mean, I can go. I agree with the bulk. I don't know that I disagree. I agree with your comments. To me, this is just, and I've said all along that it's a scalability issue, and there are other districts that have more programs, and so that is where my concern lies. I have no doubt in my mind that there are families that can benefit from or are benefiting from this. I don't ever want anybody to hear otherwise, but to Jennifer's point and to the what we've talked about previously, it's something that benefit wouldn't be lost in a program before or after school. And so that's kind of where I am as well. I do share your concerns about saying tomorrow, like we've got just a few weeks of school left, and there are likely plans in place, and I'm concerned about that disruption and what that message of immediacy is that we send to students. So. Yeah, that's where I am as well.
Amber, do you have, I don't know.
Just if I can understand where you all are right now with this. So we could vote on it at second reading. We could also just have second reading without a vote, and just keep it on the agenda for the next meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting, and then there would have to be a motion to vote before. So you all are saying that we should not vote tonight? Is that what you're proposing because of?
I don't think we can just keep it on the agenda and not vote, mainly because of our own policy on policies.
Yeah.
And once it's on there at the second reading, I believe we have to vote on it. I believe we could postpone it till the next meeting, but we would have to vote on it then. I don't think we can keep putting it off. And TJ, I'll go to you.
So the way the policy reads, once a first reading takes place, we must have it on a succeeding agenda until it's either approved or rejected. So I think you could keep carrying it indefinitely, because in order to get to a vote, somebody would need to motion and second, and if that doesn't happen, according to our policy, it would have to come up again at the next meeting. But you are correct, it does have to continue. Once we have a first reading, it does have to maintain in perpetuity until it's either approved or rejected.
But if we were to, for instance, table it tonight, then it would essentially kill it.
We'd have to start over.
Right, and we would
Yeah.
have to start over, have a first reading, a
Yeah,
second
yeah, yeah.
reading.
And
So,
let me ask one clarification to make sure I'm understanding what you just said. If we motion to vote and then vote, then that's it, right? And
that kills it too.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So if
Okay.
we would have a motion to vote to rescind and it would not pass, or even if it would be a tie, because there are only 4 of us tonight, that would fail too, and so it wouldn't pass. So
Right, and then we would start the
then we
clock
would start over.
Yeah.
Right.
She could make the motion to postpone, though.
Oh,
And that would be allowed, and if that were seconded and approved, then that would take that would take the vote to whatever time is designated in the motion.
Do we need to even do that? Because the way,
no.
my interpretation of the policy when I read it, and I can't find it in front of me right now, but I just interpreted it as if we don't move on it, then it just comes up on the agenda over and over.
That is correct. I think
Right.
both those concepts get to the same point.
okay.
So that's just a parliamentary
Yeah,
question I have,
no.
just because I feel like I'm understanding where you all are going with this. I think that's all I have for now.
Okay, so my clarification question is, if there is, did you snicker? So if there is a postponement today, and my understanding is that you're asking potentially to have a postponement to hear what the legislators have to say, is that correct?
Either that or amend the motion to not take effect till December 20th. I'm trying to see where
Okay.
people stand.
Gotcha.
That was mine as well, saying like, I'd like to hear from everybody else after Jennifer's
Okay.
comments.
I'm understanding. So first, if there's a postponement to the January 6th meeting, then we would have to vote to approve or reject it. Is that correct?
Correct, because it had a first reading, eventually it has to remain on an agenda. So since we approved this agenda, under Robert's rules, if we wanted to delay it, then the motion to postpone definitely to a date, the next meeting, let's say, if that got approved, then we would have it on that agenda.
Okay.
If that didn't get approved, then we would carry on with the rest of the meeting as is.
But if legislation goes through before then,
Right.
we will be voting to rescind a policy that we have to have anyways.
Correct, at that point, and
Or not
I did
rescind,
clarify
rescind
that,
something.
since we had a first reading, we couldn't amend it. We would have to either vote it or reject it at that point.
But if it goes into effect, we can table it
And it wouldn't be tabling.
at the next meeting.
Tabling would be to do it later at this current meeting. Postponing would be to put it at the next meeting.
Wait, is that,
It's just terminology.
there is a. Yes.
So tabling is, so if we
Yeah,
tabled something, if we tabled this today, that would be, let's take a pause.
Yeah.
And pick us up back in this meeting,
This meeting.
this
Okay.
current meeting.
But is there a scenario of a word that I don't know that would be just taking it? Like, we could take it off.
We
That
can
would be
take-
tabling. That would be tabling. Tabling would take it off. Voting and it failing would take it off.
Tabling would take it off.
Tabling would kill it.
I thought tabling just meant
Means
that we
later
were
in the
gonna talk about
meeting.
it later in the meeting. I know
My-
that's
my
not.
You'd
understanding-
have to take it off the, I guess you're right. You'd have to take it off the table at a later time. But that needs a majority vote.
Okay.
This is super complicated.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. No,
At least it's not just me.
you want to make sure that you do things well. Okay. So that's the postponement part of it. And just asking about then if legislation goes through, the vote to or not to rescind something that we would have to do anyways. That was just that that was the first clarification. The second clarification is, can we amend? And I'm hearing you say that we cannot amend if it is voted to be rescinded today, to amend it to not take into effect, go into effect until December 20th. Are you saying we're not able to do that?
That was what our legal counsel interpreted our policy, that since we had a first read, our policy says that that must remain on an agenda. So at that point, we would have to vote it in or reject it, and then have a first reading of,
A different,
Whatever.
updated policy.
or the same
But
policy, you know what I
that
mean?
you were asking about, can we add that we want it to go in effect December 20th? That's not
Right,
changing,
that's different.
that's not changing the wording in our policy.
Okay.
That's just the way we're voting on it. And that is okay. That's what Julie Martin said.
Julie Martin says.
Okay, so we can do a date at which it becomes effective. Okay.
Is that how you understood it too?
Yeah, because we're not amending the policy, we're just amending the effective date of said policy.
I gotcha. I'm following you now. Does that make sense to you, Amber, too? Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay.
I guess I don't know.
Got the newbie here. So I guess I feel like that's too loud. Sorry. It's loud here. The newbie here, right? So I'm trying to understand next steps from here. From here, we're having the second reading. We had the second reading of the policy update from Neola. This is the second reading, the rescission of policy 5223. And Jennifer is making two suggestions for us to discuss. So we have discussed those. We've gotten clarification from TJ. And so next step forward, I'm looking at you, Jennifer, just because you've
So
been
when
here
it
longer.
comes up on the agenda, I may make a motion
Okay.
to amend for the date or postpone, but I don't really have a good feel for what people are interested in, so.
Okay. Do you want to ask any additional questions? Do you want to have further conversation? I want you to be clear.
I mean, if anyone has any further comments on any preference, but, if I make a suggestion to the motion and it doesn't get a second, it goes away.
Okay. I like the date. I mean, I do
I like-
appreciate the
you like
date.
the date,
I do.
Yes, that it finishes the semester.
Yeah.
But that's my input.
Okay,
Is that
that's
helpful?
helpful. Any comments, Amber?
I'm just thinking through so if we rescind it effective December
20th.
20th, the legislature passes House Bill 8 or whatever it is that they're thinking about rolling it into. Let's say the last day of lame duck. And so that's December 31st. So we rescind it for a week. The legislature then comes back and says, you have to have a policy. Let's say they say within 90 days. I'm completely guessing on all this, by the way, just guessing. Just trying to get kind of a time frame in my head. And so other people can kind of wrap their brain around this too. So then 90 days, so then we would come back in, what is that, March? And discuss what our policy looks like. Would that go to the policy committee then? And then the full board would vote on it?
But I think it would have to be before March. I think we'd have to do it
Yeah.
right away.
Okay.
so that we're ready.
So
by
I guess then if that's where everybody's head is, then why not just set the effective date for the recension after lame duck?
That makes
Okay,
perfect
I'm
sense.
just, I'm not
That makes perfect
advocating one
sense
way
to
or
me.
another. I'm just, I mean,
So you would say December 31st, right?
right, yeah, because that would be,
I mean, yeah, December 20th, because the kids are out of school. I mean, there's nothing that's
That's
going to
true.
change
It's
for
break.
us between
Yeah.
the 20th and the 31st.
Does that effectively change anything for, within the school? I mean, that fundamentally makes sense to me, but then what does that look like on January 1st, let's say? Like, our next meeting is January 9th, so we would put something on the agenda potentially to discuss then, or policy committee there would discuss it at their next meeting. Is that what we think?
I think it just depends on what happens with legislation.
Yeah.
And just like similar with the cell phone policy, legislation came out, but we had a really long time before we had to develop policy. You have to understand that a lot of districts don't have this policy at all. So they would be starting from scratch. I mean, obviously, there could be recommended policy, recommended guidelines, and those kind of things, but it's not necessarily guaranteed it would go into effect March.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think my question is there fundamentally a difference between because what you said made perfect sense, but then is there a difference between the 20th and January 1st? I don't know. That's my,
not when you take into consideration the holiday break,
yeah,
which
yeah.
I wasn't thinking about.
yeah. So, but I mean,
I guess it
We're all kind of
feels
going-
cleaner to me, I guess.
don't
Yeah,
absolutely disagree.
at year end, it does. It just seems cleaner.
Yep.
Okay.
So then if the legislature would give us 30 or 90 days, then that would mean there would not be an RTRI policy for our district until March again. And that could look like whatever the policy committee deemed it should look like. No.
Exactly like our policy now, except say shall.
There's been some added language.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be realistic about
Yeah.
what we think we can and can't do within that policy.
I still think procedurally, it would still go through the policy committee.
Yes, absolutely. Procedurally go through the policy committee. I've been, it could be between 30 and 90 days. If it's passed with an emergency clause, we'll have to have something within 30 days. If it's not passed with an emergency clause, we'll probably have 90 days.
I just have a hard time thinking that they would do that to districts. I mean, there are some school districts that only meet like once a month. And, to think that you would have a policy committee.
I agree with you. That was exactly where my head was. OEA said something different this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
have
heard.
no idea what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
Just like, we'll see.
I also similarly heard it may, but again,
Right.
until it happens, we just don't know.
Yeah. Which makes it very complicated. Anyone have any additional comments before we move on? Okay. Next, we're going to go to the first reading of Board Policy Number 2265. This actually did not come before the Policy Committee formally. Trent sent us emails about it. It's changed to legislation and goes into effect at the end of January. So this is why we need to have a first reading now and the second reading during our January 6th meeting. So this is new policy. We do not have this policy currently. Are there any questions or discussion regarding this policy?
Yeah, I have some questions, just general. Often in policy documents, you have a section with definitions. And there's a lot of words in here that could be taken in different ways. So I'll give you one. So I'm looking at this and ideology is a word that does not, I don't know how, I mean, it's a charged word right now. And so I'm wondering if something exists somewhere that has definitions for this, because this feels like something that would be difficult to enforce. And I understand why we're reading it. That's my question, where my head is.
Ms. Harless, we do not have definitions. I believe the language comes directly from the ORC.
Okay,
And we're required to pass policy and have it posted on our website by
Okay.
January 22nd.
if the language is
So-
coming from the ORC, I mean, that's fine, our hands are tied, I was just curious.
The only piece, there is a place where we can determine whether we put an X in, and we do believe we should put an X there, meaning we would add the provisions of an adopted collective bargaining agreement
Yeah,
and the student code of conduct where applicable, so that would be part of our policy, that we're valuing that collective bargaining agreement.
yeah, I support that for sure, yeah. Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. It's hard because what's difficult is there aren't definitions, right? And so a lot of this is very vague. And so I agree with you. Is there any other questions or discussion?
I assume that the wording in this just follows the legislation, that Neola just took it straight from that, and we have to have it by January 21st.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing in here that we don't do anyways. I mean, this isn't creating change for us.
I don't read it that way.
Yeah.
That was sort of my thought, is do we need this? Do we have to have this?
I mean,
I mean,
yeah. But I guess the law says we have to.
Yeah, okay.
So that was it for me.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Superintendent's report, Dr. Bowers.
Thank you. So our mission in Worthington Schools is to empower a community of learners who will change the world. We do that through our 4 vision statements, and so we give this report following those 4 vision statements. The first is we will engage each student with diverse opportunities to maximize every student's potential. We are less than a month away from registration opening for the kindergarten class of 2038. So let me say that again, 2038. So in August of 2025, all kindergarten students in Worthington will participate in our universal all-day kindergarten program. If you know a student who will be 5 by September 30th, please have the family begin registration on our Worthington Schools website under the tab Enrollment Center. We'd love for as many families as possible to begin the registration process in January. Again, that opens on January 6th, so spread the word. The second vision statements, we will provide a safe environment where every student can grow intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically. This summer, the district began engaging in work to help teachers and administrators better address harmful words and racial slurs. Worthington administrators participated in this training this fall. All Worthington teachers will experience this professional learning in either some did it in November, some will do it this December, and then some will do it in January. So over this 3-month stretch at our schools, under Toya's leadership, we're going through that harmful words and racial slurs. So we appreciate that. The third vision statements will provide consistent communication and promote dialogue with our community. Our latest podcast is out and available wherever you get your podcasts. You won't want to miss our Worthington Kilbourne School nurse, Julie Garner, talking about the important service our Worthington Health team provides to students and families. Julie is a second-generation Worthington educator, as her mom, Lou Bush, spent 20-plus years serving in Worthington schools. The podcast sheds light on many positive aspects of Worthington, and we don't want you to miss it. So if you haven't listened yet, really sheds a positive light on our health office professionals and the work that they do. Our fourth vision statements will be responsible and transparent with our community resources. At our last Board of Education meeting, the board approved the 5-year financial forecast. I heard several very important items. The first was that we're excited to offer universal all-day kindergarten as our kindergarten program beginning next fall. The second was that the board and the administration are aligned on staying off the ballot for the next operating levy and bond issue until November of 2028. That's an extension of 2 years from what we had previously forecast. And then third, the board is concerned with current spending patterns at 3 mills per year and would like to align spending to historically supported millage closer to 2.25 mills per year. So our administration will be working to make sure all 3 of those items are met, and you'll hear more about that in the new year. I was going to say President, but it's still Vice President Davis. That's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. Our treasurer's report, Mr. Cusick.
Thank you. Our monthly financial report for November has been distributed and will soon be posted to our website. Most of the report is in line with our budget because we just approved a new budget at our last meeting when we revised the forecast. However, we were notified at month end of a refund of tax collection fees from our county auditor. We've gotten that refund the last several years, roughly around $200,000, and so that's a positive variance that our tax collection fees will end the year under budget. We also received notification this week from the city of Columbus that they have applied for a residential property tax abatement for 2 apartment developments up off of Crosswoods in our Slate Hill area. Unfortunately, I haven't heard back from my request for more information since details were scarce in the letter we received. However, since it's residential, it doesn't require school board approval. We understand the need for housing, but obviously we have concerns anytime residential property is abated, as it could lead to increased costs for the district in the form of additional students. But ultimately, since those properties are abated from both existing and future levies, it will lead to higher taxes on existing residents. So I'll reach out to Councilman Weish this week to see if we can get more information since I was unavailable, and I will certainly share that with the board if I'm able to do so. And then lastly, some background information on tonight's agenda items. The first is our annual transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund for debt that we issued back in 2015 on energy conservation improvements. Under House Bill 264, the utility savings from those energy efficient improvements go to pay the debt. And so that's why every year we transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund. We have 1 more year on that debt to go. And the second item tonight is to request advances from the county of property taxes as they are paid beginning in January rather than waiting until usually April when we settle up so that we earn the interest and not the county. So that's information on tonight's agendas, and that is all I have, Vice President Davis.
Thank you, TJ. I appreciate the notations as I do have on my agenda to ask you to explain those. So thank you for pointing that out for things we will be voting on later. That leads us to board committee reports and announcements. Does anyone have a report and/or an announcement?
Okay, you're looking at me. I'm turning this on. I'll start. Because I didn't have any committee meetings. But I do have one coming up the 18th, the Curriculum Liaison Council, and I have a work obligation that evening. So, Kelly, if you want to go on the 18th, you are welcome to have my spot.
I will ask Nikki and Amber, and I will check my calendar.
And Amber, if you say you want to go, I don't think she'll be very happy.
I'm scared to say that I do want to go. I don't know. I mean, I am available, but Kelly, I don't want to.
We'll work that out.
Okay.
All
right.
I won't believe
They'll fight it
until-
out. I knew it wouldn't be an issue if I couldn't go. I want to make a quick comment to Trent's comments about our free universal kindergarten. We as board members haven't gotten a whole lot of comments about it, but I ran into someone that works in the Welcome Center this weekend, and she just said, "Oh, thank you for the all-day kindergarten. The parents are so excited," and she just talks with the happy parents every day. So it was really good to hear that. So that's it for me.
I haven't had anything in the last 2 weeks. It's been oddly quiet, eerily quiet, so I don't have any updates.
Amber?
Yeah, same here. I mean, Thanksgiving, I think, was, just 2 weeks ago. So that kind of slowed things down a little bit. I've got some coming up next week, too. I can take you all through a little bit of a legislative update. I will admit that I was out of town today, and I've been out of town a little bit over the last couple weeks. So I don't know that this is comprehensive. So I will apologize in advance. But just a few kind of top lines. Senate Bill 104, the bathroom bill. We mentioned it at the last meeting. DeWine had not yet signed it. He signed it now. It will take effect in late February. House Bill 407, which is the bill that would require more accountability for the charter schools. So it has been, and I mentioned this at the last meeting too, it was heavily amended and stripped basically of really any significant accountability now. So for instance, the testing requirement that would sort of put everyone on, even ground has been stripped from that. So now OEA is against it, who they were in favor of that. So now, so that's what's going on with that bill. It's moving. But it looks very different than it has, and that has previously had bipartisan support, and I don't know about it now. House Bill 206, that is something that allows superintendents to expel indefinitely. I think that there's a lot of concern around that one. I don't have its status though. I'm sorry, I don't have it in my notes here, but maybe search that one because that's one that I think is moving. Possibly going to be rolled into House Bill 295 is what I have here in my notes, that allows the state to close like low-performing schools. So that could possibly be the vehicle for that one. And then House Bill 8 is the one that is suspected to be the vehicle for the RTRI bill. And that one is moving. It's on the agenda tomorrow in Senate Ed. It's already been passed by the House. That's the Parents' Bill of Rights is what House Bill 8 is, but potentially a Christmas tree bill. And like I said, if I'm forgetting things, I apologize, but those are just some of the top lines that I've kind of gleaned over the last few days.
There was one more that I hadn't heard of that was in the OSBA update today that talked about impractical busing, but I haven't read
right.
it yet. I don't know.
I saw that too, and I didn't have, like I said, I was traveling. I was in DC today,
Yeah.
so I haven't had a chance to dig into that one too, but I saw that as well.
Okay.
Trent, was that one on your radar yet?
Yeah, I don't know the bill number. They added language to a bill that would make it more difficult for districts to add impracticality. I gave feedback to the Alliance for High Quality Education on Friday, just verifying what they already knew, which is here's how some of this legislation would present challenges for public schools, create more work, and also make it more difficult on the Department of Education workforce. But we'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I appreciate that legislative update. I know that, I was trying to read through some things today, it all goes so fast and things are changing and being amended into other bills, and so it is hard to keep up, so I appreciate the update, so that we could all be on the same page of what we're advocating for. I didn't have any committee meetings either. The one thing I did want to I had two things I wanted to point out though. The one thing is that Worthington City Council was recognizing our students at 3 of their December meetings, or I guess there are 3 December meetings. So at the December 2nd meeting, they recognized the Worthing Way and KMS cross-country teams. So I thought that was really sweet. And tonight, they're recognizing the Thomas Worthington water polo team, the state championship. And next Monday, December 16th, they'll be recognizing the Thomas Worthington field hockey team. So just appreciate that they take the time to recognize them, our hardworking athletes as well. And then this Wednesday, I'm going to go to the WIN Peace Ambassadors program that they do in the elementary schools for third graders. This Wednesday is Slate Hill and Worthington Park. And so it's at 8 and 9:15. So just so FYI, if you want to join me, you can, but I'm going to go to that this Wednesday. But that's all I have as far as any reports or announcements. All right, moving on to actions recommended by the treasurer, routine business. Mr. Cusick.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the 11:25 meeting as presented in enclosure E1, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, TJ, will you please call for the roll?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Number 2, appropriations and modifications.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve appropriations modifications as listed in your agenda. The top part of these are cross-object appropriation transfers that net to zero. We do have down below appropriating $24,851, which represents the grants received tonight from the Worthington Education Foundation. So approve appropriations modifications as contained in the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the roll?
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes. Annual debt payment transfer.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the debt transfer from the general fund to the debt service fund in the amount of $312,814, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the roll?
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Okay, advances on tax settlements.
Yes, I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education authorize the treasurer to request advance payments from Franklin County during calendar year 2025 as property taxes become available.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Thank you, TJ. Next up, personnel consent agenda, Dr. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda. That's items F1 through F6 on your agenda. Items F1 through F6, please.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Actions recommended by the superintendent, new business, Dr. Bowers.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G1. Item G1 is the acceptance of the donations that are listed on your agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve item G2. Item G2 is the recommended motion to approve the continued enrollment of a senior at Thomas Worthington High School whose parents have moved out of the district. Item G2, please.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
That brings us to item H, actions recommended by the Board of Education. Can I please have a motion to approve the policy updates recommended by Neola as presented for a first reading at the November 25th, 2024 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any additional questions or discussions around this? TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Item 2 is approval for policy 5223 rescission. May I please have a motion to approve the rescission of policy 5223 as presented for a first reading at the November 25th, 2024 regular board meeting?
I mean, I'll move.
Like, I don't, yeah. I'm
I'll
confused.
move, but it needs a second.
Okay.
I do the motion after it
After?
comes on the table. Okay. So, okay, second.
So I would like to move that this policy become effective December 31st, 2024.
Then you need a second?
I need a second.
Second.
And then we need to vote on that.
Did you say December 31?
Yes.
After, she said after, right? Or on this?
On or after. I know, it's different.
I think you just, then you, if it's going to be after
After
December
December
31st.
31st, 2024, it becomes effective.
Now you vote on her amendment. So we'll call the roll on her unless you want to make it further.
And I'm looking for you for process.
So the vote, we'll call a vote on the motion to amend the motion so that it's effective after December 31st.
And then we vote again.
So can I have a motion?
We don't need the motion, we need the vote.
No. We need to vote. Okay, so TJ,
We
will
had
you
the
please
motion
call
and
for the
second.
vote?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Best,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner,
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Now the amendment is December 31st, and now the main motion to rescind the policy
As
after
amended.
December 31st as amended has a first and a second, so we need to call a vote on that one now.
TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Could you guys speak up a little bit?
So the motion on the table originally was to rescind policy 5223. That motion was amended to rescind it after December 31st. That vote carried, so now we're going to vote on the original motion as amended to be effective after December 31st.
TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Epling Skinner,
Yes.
Ms. Harless,
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to requests, questions, concerns from the board. Does anyone have anything to add? No? Okay. Moving on to calendar. Our organizational meeting will be Monday, January 6th, which is a little different for those of you who are listening than our usual board meeting. So usually the second and fourth Mondays of each month, but this is the first Monday of January. The organizational meeting will take place at 6 p.m. on Monday, January 6th, right here in the Worthington Education Center. It will be immediately followed by our regular meeting at 6:30, also here at the Worthington Education Center. And at that time, we will determine our meeting times for the year of 2025. Okay? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
TJ, will you please call for the vote?
Mrs. Epling Skinner,
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mrs. Best.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes. Thank you for joining us.